41-44. Figurative use. Cities, when cast off and desolated, are symbolically likened to widows. Bar 1. 1. Compare Jah 51. 5. Babylon the great city that is a kingdom over the kings of the earth, boasts, like her type, ancient Babylon, that she will never become a widow. Nevertheless, just as ancient Babylon did indeed become a widow, so will modern Babylon the great. Isra 47. 8, 9. Re 17. 18. 18. 7, 8. Wife. A married woman. In Hebrew, Ishmael.shah means woman literally, a female man or wife. The wife was referred to as one owned by a husband. Isra 62. 4, ftn in Greek, g-middle.ne can mean wife, or it can mean woman, whether married or not. Jehovah God provided the first man Adam with a wife by taking a rib from him and building it into the woman. She thereby became bone of his bones and flesh of his flesh. She was the counterpart of Adam and was created as a helper for him. Ge 2. 18, 20-23 God dealt directly with Adam, and in turn, Adam passed on God's commandments to his wife. By reason of his prior creation and his otextoi acute muritra longo, wife 1183 and ability, while subject to their husbandly head, had much latitude and freedom of action and were happy in their place. They were blessed in being used by Jehovah God to perform special services for him. Examples among the many faithful wives of the Bible are Sarah, Rebecca, Deborah, Ruth, Esther, and Mary the mother of Jesus. Wife protected under the law. While the husband occupied the superior position in the marriage arrangement, God's requirements were that he was to provide for and care for the family in a material and spiritual way. Also, any wrongdoings of the family reflected on him. Consequently, he had a heavy responsibility. And while he had greater privileges than the wife, God's law protected the wife and gave her certain unique privileges, so that she was able to live a happy, productive life. A few examples of the law's provisions involving the wife were: either husband or wife could be put to death for adultery. If the husband was suspicious of secret infidelity on the part of his wife, he could bring her to the priest, for Jehovah God to judge the matter, and if the woman was guilty, her reproductive organs would atrophy. On the other hand, if she was not guilty, the husband was required to make her pregnant, thereby publicly acknowledging her innocence. New 5. 12-31 A husband could divorce his wife if he found something indecent on her part. This would likely include such things as showing him gross disrespect or bringing reproach upon the household or that of his father. But the wife was protected by the requirement that he must write out for her a certificate of divorce. She was then free to marry another man. De 24. 1, 2 If the wife made a vow that her husband thought unwise or detrimental to the family's welfare, he could nullify it. New 30. 10-15 This, however, was a safeguard for the wife, keeping her from any hasty action that might bring her into difficulty. Polygamy was allowed under the Mosaic law, but was regulated so that the wife was protected. The husband could not transfer the right of the firstborn from the son of a less loved wife to the son of his favorite wife. De 21. 15-17 If an Israelite daughter was sold by her father as a servant and the master took her as a concubine, her owner could allow her to be redeemed if she did not please him, but he could not sell her to a foreign people. X 21. 7, 8 If either he or his son had taken her as a concubine and then married another wife, she was to be provided with food, clothing, and shelter, as well as the marriage due. X 21. 9-11 If a husband maliciously charged his wife with having falsely claimed to be a virgin at the time of marriage and his charge was proved false, he was punished and had to pay her father twice the marriage rate for virgins and could never divorce her all his days. De 22. 13-19 If a man seduced an unengaged virgin, he was required to pay the marriage price to her father and, if the father permitted, to marry her, after which he could never divorce her all his days. De 22. 28, 29. X 22. 16, 17. While the position of the wife in Hebrew society was somewhat different from the wife's status in Western society today, the faithful Hebrew wife enjoyed her position and her work. She helped her husband, raised the family, managed the household, and found many things of satisfaction and delight, being able to express her womanly nature and talents to the full. Description of a good wife. The happy state and activities of the faithful wife are described at Proverbs 31. She is said to be of more value to her husband than corals. He is able to put trust in her. She is industrious, weaving, making clothing for her family, attending to the buying of household needs, working in the vineyard, managing a household with the servants, aiding others who need help, clothing her family attractively, even bringing in some income by her handiwork, equipping her family o textoi acute miritra longo. Wildas 1184. Paul speaks of Jehovah as the father of spirit-begotten Christians, and he speaks of the Jerusalem above as their mother, as though Jehovah were married to her for the purpose of bringing forth spirit-begotten Christians. 4. 6, 7, 26. The Christian congregation is spoken of as the bride, or wife, of Jesus Christ. F5. 23, 25. Re 19. 7. 21. 2, 9. Wild ass. Sea ass. Wild bull. Sea bull. Wilderness. The Hebrew term for wilderness mid-middle.bar in general refers to a sparsely settled, uncultivated land. Ch2. 2. It might include pasture ground as PS 65. 12. Ch23. 10. X3. 1. Cisterns 2 ch 26. 10. Houses, and even some cities 1 chi 2. 34. Jos 15. 61, 62. Isla 42. 11. While often designating simply steppelands with brush and grass, mid-middle.bar may also apply to waterless regions that could be termed true deserts. Other Hebrew terms used to designate such areas more specifically are often found in poetic parallel with mid-middle.bar. PS 78. 40. J 50. 12. The word Yeshimiddle.mon denotes a natural waste place or desert. PS 68. 7. Isla 43. 19, 20. It is apparently a stronger term than mid-middle.bar, indicating greater barrenness, as in the expression the empty, howling desert Yeshimiddle.Monday. The 32. 10. Used with the definite article, it refers to specific wilderness areas. New 21. 20. 1 Sir 23. 19, 24. See Jeshamon. Ara middle.var describes arid and sterile tracts, like those across the Jordan from Jericho. New 22. One such desert plains could be the result of forest destruction and lack of proper conservation and cultivation, or they could be the result of prolonged drought, these conditions converting productive terrain into unfruitful wastelands. Isla 33. 9. J 51. 43. With the definite article, the word also denotes a specific part of the promised land. See Araba. Araba, torrent valley of. Another term, Tsi-middle.yar, describes any waterless region and is used in parallel with the previously mentioned words. PS 107. 35. Isla 35. 1. Even those regions meriting the description desert in the Bible were rarely of the sandy type, as certain portions of the Sahara Desert are with their rolling sand dunes. Usually they were relatively treeless, arid or semi-arid flatlands, rocky plateaus, or desolate waterless valleys hemmed in by high mountains and barren peaks. Job 30. 3-7. J 17. 6. S 19. 13. The nation of Israel, making their exodus from Egypt, were guided by God into the wilderness along the Red Sea, causing Pharaoh to assume that they had lost their bearings. X 13. 18-20. 14. 1-3. On the other side of the Red Sea, and for the remainder of 40 years, Israel passed from one wilderness section to another, including the wilderness regions of Shur, Sin, Sinai, Paran, and Zin. X 15. 22. 16. 1. 19. 1. New 10. 12. 20. 1. At times encamping at oases, such as at Elim, with its 12 springs and 70 palm trees x 15. 27, and at Kadesh. New 13. 26. The 2. 14. Map, Volume 1, p. 541. The Promised Land itself, forming part of the so-called Fertile Crescent, lay like a finger of well-cultivated land bounded on one side by the Mediterranean Sea and on two sides by vast wilderness regions. The Syro-Arabian Desert on the E and the Sinai Peninsula on the S. 23. 31 within the land's boundaries were smaller wilderness sections, for example, that by Dothan, just east of the valley of Jezreel, where Joseph was cast into the Perturbs by his brothers Ge 37. 17, 22. The wilderness of Judah, with certain sections around the cities of Zip, Maon, and Engedi, wildernesses in which David sought refuge from Saul. JG 1. 16. 1 23. 14, 24. 24. 1. And wilderness regions on the east side of the Jordan, merging with the Syro-Arabian Desert. New 21. 13. 1. 1. 4. 43. Much of the Rift Valley through which the Jordan River runs today, called the Gore, is basically desert land. While many of the wilderness regions mentioned in the Bible are today completely barren wastelands, there is evidence that some were rotextoi acute muritra longo, wilderness 1185 conditions in wilderness of wandering. Although the conditions in some of the wilderness regions were quite possibly more favorable in the ancient past than at the present time, Moses could speak of Israel's trek through Sinai as through the great and fear-inspiring wilderness, with poisonous serpents and scorpions and with thirsty ground that has no water. 1. 19. 8. 15. Pictures, Volume 1, p. 542. It was a land of fevers. Ho 13. 5. A land of pit and deep shadow. J 2. 6. The more barren wilderness regions either were uninhabited. Job 38. 26. Or were places where tent dwellers resided, nomads roamed. 1 ch 5. 9, 10. J 3. 2. Here were brambles and thorn bushes. Ge 21. 14, 15. X 3. 1, 2. JG 8. 7. Thorny lotus trees, and thickets of prickly acacia trees. X 25. 10. Job 40. 21, 22. Weary travelers traversing the beaten paths. J 12. 12 might seek shade under the thin, rod-like branches of a broom tree. 1 Chi 19. 4, 5, or under a gloomy-looking dwarf juniper. J 48. 6, or by the gnarled trunk of a tamarisk with its feather-like foliage of tiny evergreen leaves. Ge 21. 33. High above, eagles and other birds of prey wheeled around in cloudless skies. De 32. 10, 11, while horned vipers and arrow snakes slithered over rocks and under bushes, sand lizards scurried about, and big monitor lizards lumbered along on short, powerful legs. LR 11. 30. PS 140. 3. ISA 34. 15 mountain goats appeared on rocky crags. 1 Sa 24. 2. Wild asses, zebras, camels, and ostriches foraged on the sparse vegetation. And even pelicans and porcupines might be seen. Job 24. 5. 39. 5, 6. J 2. 24. Blah 4. 3. Zep 2. 13, 14. At night, the howling of jackals and wolves was joined by the hooting of owls or the whirring cry of the nightjar, adding to the feeling of wildness and isolation. ISA 34. 11-15. J 5. 6. Those who slept in the wilderness region generally did so with little sense of security. Compare IS 34. 25. With the exception of scattered oases, the Sinai Peninsula is largely a region of sand, hard gravel, and rock. Meager vegetation grows in the waters. Anciently there may have been a greater amount of rainfall and also more vegetation. However, without God's care, the Israelites, possibly numbering 3 million, could never have survived in this barren region. As Moses told them on the plains of Moab, watch out for yourself that you may not forget Jehovah your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slaves, who caused you to walk through the great and fear-inspiring wilderness, with poisonous serpents and scorpions, and with thirsty ground that has no water, who brought forth water for you out of the flinty rock, who fed you with manna in the wilderness, which your fathers had not known, in order to humble you and in order to put you to the test, so as to do good in your after days. 8. 11-16. Wilderness in the Greek Scriptures. Here the Greek term eri-mos corresponds generally to the Hebrew mid-bar. Luke 15. For it describes the wilderness setting of John the Baptist's preaching Mount 3. One and the lonely places into which a certain demonized man was driven. Luke 8. 27-29. Jesus, after being baptized, fasted and was tempted by Satan in a wilderness region. Mount 4. 1. Compare Luke 16. 20-22. During his ministry, at times Jesus retired to the wilderness to pray. Luke 5. 16. He assured his disciples, however, that his presence with kingly power would not be limited to some lonely wilderness, but would be made manifest everywhere. Mount 24. 26. The wilderness still had its own special dangers when the Apostle Paul made his missionary journeys. 2 Co 11. 26. Compare 21. 38. Figurative uses. The wilderness regions to the eons of Palestine were also the source of fierce hot winds now called siroccos, from the Arabic word shaqwiya for east wind. These winds blowing in from the desert have a tremendous parching effect, absorbing all the moisture. Textoi acute muritra longo. Wilderness of Judah 1186. Opposition to God's kingdom arrangement. The enemy nations, such as Babylon, Egypt, Edom, and others, were to undergo a similar experience. Particularly Babylon was singled out as due to become a waterless wilderness and a desert plain, uninhabited, forgotten in her desolation. Job 50. 12-16. Job 3. 19. Zep 2. 9, 10. By contrast, the restoration of Judah, after the 70-year exile, would be like converting a wilderness region into an Edenic garden, with fruitful orchards and productive fields watered by streams and rivers, and with reedy plants, leafy trees, and blossoming flowers, or making the land appear to rejoice. Issa 35. 1, 2. 51. 3. Individuals. Similar references to individuals show that such prophecies apply primarily in a spiritual, rather than a literal, way. Thus, the one trusting in men rather than in Jehovah is likened to a solitary tree in a desert plain, with no hope of seeing good. But the one trusting in Jehovah is like a tree planted by the waters, fruitful, luxuriant, secure. Job 17. 5-8. These contrasts also provide the basis for a mental picture of what constituted a wilderness region. Wilderness of the sea. The wilderness mid-bar of the sea at Isaiah 21. One has been understood by some commentators to be an expression referring to the southern part of ancient Babylonia. When the Euphrates and Tigris rivers annually overflowed their banks, this region became as a wilderness sea. In Revelation. In the book of Revelation, the wilderness is used in a dual sense. To represent solitude and refuge from attackers in the case of the symbolic woman who gives birth to the royal male child re 12. 6, 14, and to represent the home of wild beasts in the case of the symbolic woman Babylon the Great, who rides the seven-headed wild beast. Re 17. 3-6, 12-14. Wilderness of Judah. See Judah, wilderness of. Wild goat. Sea goat. Willow heb. Zaf far. The name of this tree in Hebrew corresponds to the Arabic saif, which is applied to the willow tree. There are two types of willow growing in Israel. One is designated by the botanical term Salix alba, but the most common is the Salix acmophylla. The Hebrew word occurs only once, at Ezekiel 17. 5, where the symbolic seed of the land, evidently referring to Zedekiah, is figuratively planted by the king of Babylon as a willow by vast waters. The willow trees are found along the banks of rivers and shallow streams and in other moist places, where they sprout quickly from cuttings or slips and grow rapidly. They never attain the height of poplar trees, but grow as shrubs or small trees and often form thickets along the watercourses. Their beauty is in their slender long leaves, hanging gracefully from the slender twigs and branches. Wind. The Hebrew word ruach, often rendered spirit, can also denote air in motion, wind. EC 1. 6 other Hebrew terms and expressions may be translated storm wind hoat. 7. Tempest, whirling temperature 25. 32. 23. 19. Tempestuous wind, and windstorm PS 148. 8. 2 Chi 2. 11. Although at John 3. 8 Noima generally translated spirit means wind, the Greek term mos is the more frequently used designation for wind. Mount 7. 25, 27. 11. 7. Joe 6. 18 The breezy part Heb. Ruach of the day apparently referred to the evening hours just before sunset, when refreshing cool breezes commonly arise in the region where the Garden of Eden is thought to have been. GE 3. 8. Sea Spirit. Jehovah God is the creator of the wind. Am 4. 13 Though not literally in it 1 Chi 19. 11. Compare Job 38. 1. 40. 6. PS 104. 3. God can control the wind and use it to serve his purposes, as when he employed it as an agent to cause the waters of the flood to subside. G8. 1. X 14. 21. U 11. 31. PS 78. 26. 107. 25, 29. 135. 7. 147. 18. J 10. 13. John 1. For his Son, when on earth, likewise displayed power to control the winds, causing Otex to acute Muritra Longo, wine and strong drink 1187 and Palestine, crossed vast desert areas and so was hot and dry, scorching or drying up vegetation. G 41. 6, 23, 27. S 17. 7-10. Compare Ho 13. 15. John 4. 8. During the rainy season, west winds carried moisture into Palestine from the Mediterranean Sea and brought rain to the land. 1 Chi 18. 42-45 When observers there saw a cloud rising in the W, they could expect a storm. Lu 12. 54 In the dry summer, daily breezes from the Mediterranean made the weather more tolerable. Sea cloud. Euro Aquilo. Figurative use. Winds can spring up quickly and just as quickly die down, thus appropriately representing the transitoriness of man's life. Job 7. 7 Having no solid substance, wind can denote vain knowledge and labor, empty words and hopes. Job 15. 1, 2. 16. 3. EC 5. 16. Ho 12. 1, as well as nothingness. Issa 26. 18. 41. 29. J 5. 13 As vain works end up in futility, pursuing them is like striving after wind. EC 1. 14. 2. 11 And the man who brings ostracism upon his house takes possession of wind. He gains nothing that is worth while or his real substance. PR 11. 29. Winds scatter and toss objects about, and so being scattered to every wind or divided toward the four winds signifies complete dispersion or division. J 49. 36. As 5. 10. 12. 14. 17. 21. Da 11. For like a vessel that is tossed about by the winds, with no set course, persons lacking Christian maturity are subject to being carried hither and thither by every wind of teaching by means of the trickery of men, by means of cunning and contriving a F4. 13, 14. Window. See house. Wine and strong drink. There are a number of original language terms that usually designate some kind of wine. Heb. T middle dot Roush GE 27. 28, 37. Ho 2. 8, 9, 22. Heb. Chamurda 32. 14. Issa 27. 2 and its corresponding Aramaic term Kamada 5. 1, 2, 4, 23. As well as GR. Glucosic 2. 13. But the Hebrew word yin is found most frequently in the scriptures. It first appears in Genesis 9. 20-24, where the reference is to Noah's planting a vineyard after the flood and then becoming intoxicated on the wine therefrom. The Greek word oimbos, basically corresponding to the Hebrew term yayin, first occurs in Jesus' comments on the inadvisability of using old wineskins for new, partially fermented wine, as the pressure developed through fermentation would burst the old wineskins. Mount 9. 17. Mr. 2. 22. Bu 5. 37, 38. Various strong alcoholic liquors, apparently derived from pomegranates, dates, figs, and the like, were usually designated by the Hebrew term shakar. New 28. 7. The 14. 26. PS 69. 12. The Hebrew word amidal.sis, at the Song of Solomon 8. 2, refers to the fresh juice of pomegranates, but in other passages the context points to wine. Isla 49. 26. Joe 1. 5b may have been designated by the Hebrew word sovi. Issa 1. 22. Na 1. 10. Winemaking. In Palestine the grapes were gathered during August and September, depending on the type of grapes and the climate of the region. The vintage season was practically over by the time the Festival of Booths was celebrated in the early part of autumn. The 16. 13. After being picked, the grapes were placed in limestone vats, or troughs, where men usually crushed them barefoot, singing songs as they trod a winepress. Issa 16. 10. J 25. 30. 48. 33. With such comparatively gentle crushing methods, the stems and seeds were not broken down, so that little of the tannic acid in the skins was expressed. This, in turn, made for a high-quality wine, one that was smooth and soft on the palate. K7. 9. Sometimes heavy stones were used instead of feet. See press. The first must, or fresh juice, that flows from the broken skins of the grapes, if kept separate from the great volume of juice extracted under pressure, makes the richest and best wines. Fermentation begins within 6 hours after the crushing, while the juice is still in the vats, and slowly progresses au texte acute muritra longo. Wine and strong drink 1188 Abraham. GE 14. 18-20 Jesus drank wine with his meals when it was available. Mount 11. 19. Lu 7. 34. Wine was very much a part of banquets as 1. 7. 5. 6. 7. 2, 7, 8, wedding feasts Joe 2. 2, 3, 9, 10. 4. 46, and other festive occasions 1 ch 12. 39, 40. Job 1. 13, 18. The royal commissaries were stocked with wines 1 ch 27. 27. 2 ch 11. 11. It was the customary beverage of kings and governors. Ne 2. 1. 5. 15, 18. Da 1. 5, 8, 16. Travelers often included it in their provisions for a journey. Jos 9. 4, 13. JG 19. 19. Its wide usage made wine a commodity of trade. Ne 13. 15. The wine of Helbon preferred by the kings of Persia and the wine of Lebanon being particularly famous. As 27. 18. Ho 14. 7. Wine was a medium of payment for workers employed in providing wood used in building the temple. 2 ch 2. 8-10, 15. It was considered an excellent gift for one's superiors. 1 ch 25. 18. 2 ch 16. 1. 2 and was included in the tithing contribution given for the support of the priests and Levites. 18. 3, 4. 2 ch 31. 4, 5. Ne 10. 37, 39. 13. 5, 12. And wine was among the choice things offered up to Jehovah in connection with sacrificial worship of him. X 29. 38, 40. La 23. 13. New 15. 5, 7, 10. 28. 14. Once a 1. 24. 10. 3. Ho 9. 4. Wine was not at first a part of the Passover meal but was added later, perhaps after the return from Babylonian exile. It was therefore on the table when Jesus celebrated the Passover the last time with his apostles and was conveniently used by him in instituting the memorial of his death. The red blood of grapes was a fitting representation of Jesus' own sacrificial blood. On that occasion Jesus spoke of such wine as this product of the vine, and since it was perhaps 7 months after the grape harvest, there can be no question but that it was fermented juice of the vine. G 49. 11. Mount 26. 18, 27-29. As indicated by Jesus and reported by the physician Luke, wine had certain medicinal value as an antiseptic and mild disinfectant. Luke 10. 34. The Bible also recommends it as a curative remedy in cases of certain intestinal disturbances. Paul counseled Timothy, "Do not drink water any longer, but use a little wine for the sake of your stomach and your frequent cases of sickness." 1 T 5. 23. This was sound medical advice. As Dr. Salvatore P. Luzia, professor of medicine, University of California School of Medicine, writes, "Wine is the most ancient dietary beverage and the most important medicinal agent in continuous use throughout the history of mankind. Actually, few other substances available to man have been as widely recommended for their curative powers as have wines." Wine as Food and Medicine, 1954, p. 5. See Diseases and Treatment. Contrary to the erroneous opinions of some, alcoholic liquors are not mental stimulants, but are in reality sedatives and depressants of the central nervous system. Give intoxicating liquor, your people, to the one about to perish, and wine to those who are bitter of soul, not as a mental stimulant to make such ones more conscious of their misery, but, rather, as the proverb says, that they may forget their troubles. PR 31. 6, 7. There was an ancient custom among the Romans of giving criminals drugged wine to blunt the pain of execution. Perhaps this is why Roman soldiers offered Jesus drugged wine when impaling him. Mr. 15. 23. It is apparent that wine is one of the gifts included among Jehovah's blessings to mankind. Wine makes the heart of mortal man rejoice. It puts the heart in a merry mood. PS 104. 15. As 1. 10. 2 13. 28. EC 2. 3. 10. 19. Zek 10. 7. Hence, Daniel when in mourning drank no wine. Da 10. 2, 3. An abundant supply of wine, symbolized by the vine in the oft-repeated expression sitting under one's own vine and fig tree, denotes prosperity and security under Jehovah's righteous rule. 1 Chi 4. 25. 2 Chi 18. 31. Issa 36. 16. Mik 4. 4. Zek 3. 10. Wine is also included. O textoi acute miritra longo, Wisdom 1189. In Art Syriac from birth, his mother was not allowed to touch wine or liquor during her pregnancy. JG 13. 4, 5, 7, 14. When officiating, it is not for kings to drink wine, or for high officials to say, where is intoxicating liquor? Lest they forget what is decreed and pervert the cause of any of the sons of affliction. PR 31. 4. 5 Overseers in the Christian congregation should not be drunken brawlers, and ministerial servants should likewise be serious, not giving themselves to a lot of wine. 1t3. 3. 8. Pictorial. Ancient Babylon, when acting as Jehovah's executioner, made all the nations drunk on wine, symbolic of Jehovah's wrath against the nations. J 51. 7 Also, in other texts, opponents of Jehovah are depicted as being forced to drink of God's righteous indignation, likened to wine that is foaming, the wine of rage, the wine of the anger of God. PS 75. 8. J 25. 15. Re 14. 10. 16. 19 A bitter potion that has no relationship to divine anger is the wine of her spiritual fornication that Babylon the Great makes all the nations drink. Re 14. 8. 17. 2. 18. 3. 13. Winepress. Sea press. Wineskins. The Greek word amidaldoxkos designates a bag or bottle made of a whole animal skin. Jesus Christ said, "Neither do people put new wine into old wineskins skin bags, int. But if they do, then the wineskins burst and the wine spills out and the wineskins are ruined. But people put new wine into new wineskins, and both things are preserved." Mount 9. 17. Mr. 2. 22. U5. 37, 38 As new wine ferments, it generates carbon dioxide gas that exerts pressure on the skin bottles. New skins expand. Old, inflexible ones burst under the pressure. This illustration was part of Jesus' answer as to why his disciples did not conform to all the old customs and practices of the Pharisees. Jesus evidently implied that the truth of Christianity was too powerful and energetic to be retained by the old system of Judaism, which lacked vitality and elasticity and which was fast passing away. Mount 9. 14-16 For a general discussion of skin bottles and their uses, see bottle. Winnowing. The final step in separating cereal grains such as barley and wheat from their chaff and straw. After threshing has broken the grain kernels loose from the chaff, and the straw has been cut into small pieces, the whole mixture is winnowed by tossing it into the air against the wind with a winnowing shovel or fork. Is 30. 24 The breeze, especially strong in the evening, blows the chaff away, carries the straw off to the side, and lets the heavy kernels fall back onto the threshing floor. Route 3. 2. Picture, Volume 2, p. 953 After the grain is passed through a sieve to remove pebbles and the like, it is ready for grinding or storage. AM 9. 9. Lu 22. 31. Figurative use. Often winnowing is used in a figurative sense. For example, Jehovah purposed to send winnowers against Babylon and her inhabitants so that these might winnow her. J 51. 1, 2 The winnowers proved to be the Medes and the Persians under Cyrus. In effect, they tossed Babylon and her inhabitants into the air, that the wind might catch them and blow them away like chaff to be burned. Mount 3. 12. Lu 3. 17 Similarly, as foretold, Jehovah had earlier used Babylon to winnow his people, scattering them in defeat. J 15. 7 And, through the prophet Isaiah, Jehovah gave the assurance to his people that the time would come when they would reduce their enemies to chaff and winnow them. Isra 41. 14-16 At Jeremiah 4. 11 A searing wind to come against Jerusalem is said to be not for winnowing, nor for cleansing. A tempestuous, searing wind would not be suitable for winnowing, so this points to its destructive nature. Wisdom. The biblical sense of wisdom lays emphasis on sound judgment, based on knowledge and understanding. The ability to use knowledge and understanding successfully to solve problems, avoid or avert dangers, o textoi acute miritra longo. Wisdom 1190 be expressed in caution, self-control, moderation, or restraint. the discrete form of throw in I middle. Most man builds his house on a rock mass, foreseeing the possibility of storm. The foolish man builds his on sand and suffers disaster. Mount 7. 24-27. Understanding fortifies wisdom in other ways. For example, a person may obey a certain command of God because he recognizes the rightness of such obedience, and this is wisdom on his part. But if he gets real understanding of the reason for that command, the good purpose it serves, and the benefits accruing from it, his heart determination to continue in that wise course is greatly strengthened. PR 14. 33 Proverbs 21. 11 says that by one's giving insight to a wise person he gets knowledge. The wise person is happy to get any information that will grant him a clearer view into the underlying circumstances, conditions, and causes of problems. Thereby he gets knowledge as to what to do regarding the matter and knows what conclusions to draw, what is needed to solve the existing problem. Compare PR 9. 9. EC 7. 25. 8. 1. As 28. 3. See insight. Divine wisdom. Wisdom in the absolute sense is found in Jehovah God, who is wise alone in this sense. Row 16. 27. Re 7. 12 Knowledge is acquaintance with fact, and since Jehovah is the Creator, who is from time indefinite to time indefinite PS 90. 1, 2. He knows all there is to know about the universe, its composition and contents, its history till now. The physical laws, cycles, and standards upon which men rely in their research and invention, and without which they would be hopeless and have nothing stable upon which to build, are all of his making. Job 38. 34-38. PS 104. 24. PR 3. 19. J 10. 12, 13 Logically, his moral standards are even more vital for stability, sound judgment, and successful human living. D 32. 4-6. See Jehovah God of moral standards. There is nothing beyond his understanding. Issa 40. 13, 14 Though he may allow things that are contrary to his righteous standards to develop and even temporarily prosper, the future ultimately rests with him and will conform precisely to his will, and the things spoken by him will have certain success. Issa 55. 8-11. 46. 9-11. For all these reasons it is evident that the fear of Jehovah is the start of wisdom. PR 9. 10 Who should not fear you, O King of the nations, for to it is fitting. Because among all the wise ones of the nations and among all their kingships there is in no way anyone like you. J 10. 7 He is wise in heart and strong in power. Who can show stubbornness to him and come off uninjured? Job 9. 4. PR 14. 16 In his mightiness he can intervene at will in human affairs, maneuvering rulers or eliminating them, making his prophetic revelations prove infallible. Da 2. 20-23 Biblical history recounts the futile efforts of powerful kings with their astute counselors to pit their wisdom against God, and it highlights the way he has triumphantly vindicated his servants who loyally proclaimed his message. Issa 31. 2. 44. 25-28. Compare Job 12. 12, 13. God's wisdom in the sacred secret. The rebellion that broke out in Eden presented a challenge to God's wisdom. His wise means for ending that rebellion, wiping out its effects and restoring peace, harmony, and right order in his universal family, formed a sacred secret, the hidden wisdom, which God foreordained before the systems of things, that is, those systems that have developed during man's history outside Eden. 1 Co 2. 7 Its outlines were contained in God's dealings with, and promises to, his faithful servants during many centuries. It was foreshadowed and symbolized in the law covenant with Israel, including its priesthood and sacrifices, and was pointed to in innumerable prophecies and visions. Finally, after more than 4,000 years, the wisdom of that sacred secret was revealed in Jesus Christ. 1. 26-28, through whom God purposed an administration o textui acute miritra longo, Wisdom 1191 APR 14. 15, 18, and right judgment. But since true wisdom begins with the fear of Jehovah God, PS 111,